The Global Latin Factor Podcast.
Welcome you and all to another episode of the Global Latin Factor Podcast, where we talk about Latino everything. I'm your host, Crispin Valentin, and today we have a very special episode, and I'm going to tell you all about it. But first, I got a correction to make from the previous episode, the Bad Bunny episode. So what I usually do is Google and look at videos. Everything I found said that his dad was from the Dominican Republic and his mother was Puerto Rican. So later on, I found a video after we had already released the episode that he's fully 100% Boricua from Puerto Rico. So I have to fix that. Even though in the comments, there's back and forth that his dad is Dominican. So I'm going to go based off what he said on the interview, Bad Bunny, and he said that he's 100% Puerto Riqueño, so that's what we're going to go for that. All right, so now with that out of the way, let me go ahead and get started because if you look at the screen right now, I got this very special book right now. Why? Because we have SGN, a seasoned educator, polished author, born in El Salvador, raised in Los Angeles, and we're going to have his co-author joining us later. JFLOW was born and raised in Huntington Park, is also an educator, podcaster, lover of nature, philosopher, and a full-time fool. We have Angel SGN Romero and Jesus Flores, a.k.a. JFLOW, author of This Fool, 7 Lessons for Burros and Bag Chaser by SGN and JFLOW of Elotes Books that sold over 700 copies and more. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm doing excellent today. Thank you for having me, Crispin. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And real quickly, tell us where you're located at right now.
Yeah, so right now I'm in the San Fernando Valley, California. That's where I work. I'm actually inside my office at the school at which I work.
Awesome. I appreciate you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get to a segment that I like to call Preguntas al Chile. So right now we have the graphics playing. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube, go ahead and do so. If you are just listening to the audio, we do have the YouTube video that you can look at it. It's 4K, looks beautiful, and you'll be able to see this beautiful book that I have here. Okay, you ready?
Yes, sir.
So some of them are going to be a lot of Mexicano ones, but I got you, though. I got you. I got the Salvi side. So tacos o tortas?
Tacos.
Corn tortilla or flour tortilla?
100% corn.
Okay, Mexican coca o jarrito?
Jarritos.
Okay, what flavor?
Orange.
Okay.
Naranja.
Agua de horchata, jamaica o tamarindo?
Horchata.
Okay. Salsa verde, salsa roja?
Híjole, salsa roja.
Okay, we're going to get to this one or that one. Gorditas or pupusas?
Pupusas.
Uh-huh. Salvadorian tamales or Mexican tamales?
Salvador, baby.
Okay. Marquesote or tres leches cake?
Tres leches cake.
Elote loco or elote in a cup, Mexican style?
Elote loco.
Okay. Carne guisada or lomo entomatado?
I never had the second, so carne guisada.
Carne guisada, it is. Some of those are Salvadorian dishes. Churro or flan?
Churro.
Okay. Menudo or pozole?
Pozole.
Valentina or Cholula or el tapatio sauce?
Tapatio.
Okay. I don't know if you ever had the Mexican candy, the paletitas. They're coming like sandia, elote, mango. Which one would you like?
I would probably go with sandia.
Okay. And the last one, the bread, conchitas, the brown one, the pink one, or the white ones?
The conchas, probably the white one.
The chocolate ones. Awesome. Okay. So when you hear the term Latino, what comes to mind first?
Yeah, bro. When I hear the term Latino, because I'm in the Southwest, because I grew up in LA, usually I think Mexican or Salvadoran or Central American, but I also think about like someone of Latin American descent, either living in Latino America or in the United States or abroad.
Awesome. And do you identify as a Latino? Do you care if anybody says that you're a Latino or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I accept the term Latino. I personally identify as a Salvadoreño. So when people ask me, like, what's your background? I usually say I'm Salvadoran or
Nice.
Salvadorian. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you So I know you've done different interviews, but however, during that time, we're like, man, I wish they would have asked me this. Do you have anything that comes to mind at first whenever you?
A question that I wish they would have asked me. Damn, that's
Yes.
a really good question, actually. Um, Nah, man. Like at this point of my career, you know, as an educator and as a writer, I really just enjoy the process, bro. Everyone has a different creative process as far as their podcast and their outlets. So for me, bro, I just go with the flow. Like I let them ask what questions they're gonna ask. So at this point, I I just let the interview do their thing, you know.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm ready. I got a lot of questions. Okay. My first question for you is, do you remember how your trip was from El Salvador to here? I know you were small and it was many years ago, but do you kind of remember what the journey was like?
Dang, I've actually never been asked that question on an interview. So let me think about this. I would say I do remember, bro. I remember being very confused. I
Mm-hmm.
remember not having too much prep time for my abuelita. It was just more like, oh, mira, mijito, te vas a ir con este señor y este señor te va a llevar a conocer a tu mamá y a tu papá. Because well, I had already met my father because he had been in El Salvador for a bit, but he left after my mother left,
Right.
but I don't remember my mother. So that was, I don't want to get into too much detail, but all I do remember, bro, is I experienced hunger for a little bit. It took about 3 days, and I was with a complete stranger. And I just know that I got to the United States, bro, and that was that.
Yeah, and I remember you saying in the book. I don't want to give too many things about the book, but you did mention that briefly, and I respect the part that you don't want to get into much of the details. But the only reason why I want to ask is because I'm from Mexico too, and it's the similar story like yours. Like my grandma and grandpa, they like my grandpa's the one that took us on the bus to the border, and same thing. They gave us to some strangers that we never met. And crossed over and then got to the States. And it was illegal for some time until we got legalized. But yeah, it was a similar journey.
It's crazy, bro, to think about. Like we're so little and we go through so much, and then you grow up and you're like, damn, like we really did that, you
We
know?
really did that. How old were you? I was 11. How old were you?
I was 7, bro.
You were
I was a
7 years old.
youngster,
Man, I can't believe you still remember some of that stuff.
bro. I thank God every day, bro, that I even made it, bro. Because you don't know, some kids don't make it, you know?
Oh
Some people
yeah.
don't make it.
Yeah, there's horror stories. People left in the desert. Like my mom, and whenever she was trying to cross over with my uncle, they got robbed. And luckily, it was just something, just robbed, took their stuff, and then that's it. But that was way back in the days. But yeah, you're right.
Wow.
There's so many stories that are not told that of horrible things that happen, and people don't make it. They get stuck trying to make it to the American dream. So it's awesome that we're here.
Yeah, for real.
Okay, so one thing about as far as you, where does your name come? Where does the SGN come from? What does that mean exactly? Because I didn't see it in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
interviews.
absolutely. So SGN is my pen name. So that's one of my alter egos. I write as SGN. My legal name is Angel Romero, but
Mm-hmm.
my pen name or my alter ego is SGN. So what it stands for is scholar, gamer, nerd. I'm a scholar first, a gamer second, and a nerd always.
And that's your
What does
YouTube
that
channel,
mean?
right?
Yeah, yeah. I used to have I still got the channel. It cracked off for a little bit, but then I kind of just wanted to focus on my writing career.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what it really stands for, bro, it stands for this idea of like be whoever you want to be. As a kid, I grew up in an environment where, a boy could only be like one or two things, and eventually I outgrew that kind of like limited mindset. And I was like, man, I'm not trying to be like a one-dimensional fool, you know?
Absolutely.
And so I embraced the thing that I was told as a youngster that I could not be, which was a nerd. There ain't no Latino nerds, ain't no Salvi nerds in the hood. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, forget that. Like, I want to be that. So I said, F that. Like, I want to be who I want to be. And that was kind of the moniker, the pen name, if you will, that I went for. Scholar,
Nice.
gamer, nerd.
That's dope. And I like that approach about how our own people growing up try to put us in a category that we're not able to be anything more than what your parents or whatever else was, or your hood, people from your hood, instead of being able to open like the mind to the people that they can be different things. And we so want to just have people label us and keep us in that in that area for whatever reason, and it's great that you're like, you know what, it's not gonna be that. It's whatever I feel like, because it's at the end of the day, it's gonna be your life. It's gonna be your story that you're writing. So that's
Right.
dope. I appreciate that. Okay, so I know you briefly shared a story about how it started, but do you remember the light bulb moment when y'all decided to write this beautiful book that I have here? I have a copy of it. Confession, real quickly, that I told you earlier. I'm not a big reader. I don't read often. I really don't.
Okay.
It's very
Valid. That's
challenging. I
valid.
like audio. I like to hear a podcast. I like to hear different videos. But I did finish y'all's book. I read the entire
Wow.
book from cover to cover.
Thank you, bro. That means a lot to us, man. I salute you and I thank you for taking the time to read it.
Yeah, and then whenever you reached out, I know you wanted to send, but you know what? No, I have to support you because I have to buy it. I have to be able to be like I know you, if you wanted to, you could have probably sent it to me, but not like, no, let me go ahead and take the time to support whatever they're doing. It looks great. I think it's a different approach as far as a book. It stands out different, and as far as the lessons itself, it's just, it's empowering. It has some things that are really, I can remember going through when I was younger, and I was like, oh yeah, now it makes sense to me, right? Because I'm a little older. But when I was
Right.
reading through it, oh yeah, I remember that when I was going through my life and that at a point of time, or this and that. But back to the question: do you ever remember the actual light bulb moment when it say, let's write a book"?
Yeah, Crispin, that is an excellent question. And I do. So Jesus is actually somebody who I met later on in my journey. I didn't grow up with him. We grew up in different neighborhoods, different sections of the city, just entirely different lives. But our careers brought us together in the community of Watts, which is in South Central. So we were both teachers in 2016 at Jordan High School in a neighborhood called Watts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of it,
Oh
but it's
yeah,
a
we heard
very
of Watts.
okay, we show it's a very infamous, I guess you could say, neighborhood due to the poverty and a lot of the violence and stuff that goes on there. But there's a lot of brilliance and creativity. So we were blessed to work with kids in that community at the high school level.
Nice.
And one of the recurring themes that we noticed as we were educating and teaching the kids in English and history, and learning about their stories and their trauma is that a lot of fools needed healing, but they weren't going. And there were sometimes some were resorting to drugs, some were resorting to gangs, some were resorting to other types of violence or whatever the case may be. And Jesus and I were going through kind of our healing journeys, since we're obviously older than the students and more mature, right? We were going through our healing journeys and we were going in our therapy journeys and our self-help books and becoming more educated fools, I guess, trying to become more um, centered people,
more
right?
self-aware,
moving away from more self-aware, right? More trying to be a person of service to our community. And when we kept talking and we were like, bro, like we need a message, like we need to write a book, dog. And we just kept talking about it, right? We need to write a book, bro. We need to write a self-help book for fools, dog. Like what if we wrote the 4 agreements, but for fools? Like, what if we wrote the 7 habits of highly effective burros? We would just joke like that. But then one day, this little thing called the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic,
I remember
kicked
that.
off, and we got to teach from home, bro. They were like, "Yo, you guys are gonna work from home now," and we were like, "Dog, this is gonna cut down our commute time by hours. These are all these hours we're gonna get back." So Jesus and I, we sat down. We had already built like a really solid friendship.
Nice.
I respected his principles. I respected his background. He respected mine. We became good friends, and then we were like, "Dog, let's write this book." So we basically became business partners / co-authors. And the pandemic really it facilitated that like ideal we had. So the light bulb moment, I guess, was when the pandemic kicked off. We're like, "Here we go, bro. This is our chance. This is our like one chance, one opportunity."
That's dope. That's awesome. And I like the fact that y'all take the concept of that fool word that sometimes it's kind of seen like, I wouldn't say it's like a bad term, but it's not really taking somebody that's like serious or anything like that, or anybody that's educated, and y'all flip that and be like, no, you can be like, if you want to be that, you can be that, but you can also be educated within that same term. You just don't have to be just a fool just because.
Right. Absolutely, bro. I'm glad you took note of that because language really matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think historically, the word fool or fool, like, what's up, fool? Like, where you from, fool? Right. Like, that's what you hear in the neighborhood, right? At
Right.
least here in LA, right? Um, and it becomes a part of the culture, right? But it's not just a part of like street culture. It's just a part of the culture, like, hey, fool, let's go, where you going, fool? And then everyone just says it. So we were like, yo, there's foods gone wild, which is cool, but what if we were a foods gone educated?
Educated.
You know, foods that went to college, foods that want to improve the community, foods that want to be more than just like the local hood food,
Yeah,
which there's nothing wrong with. I'm not judging, the homies that get it how they live in the hood. I'm just
absolutely.
saying like there's a lot of different ways to be a fool. And we were like, we just wanted to show one. We wanted to be the educated fools. And we kind of turned healing into a light-hearted topic, because it's
Yeah,
hard to talk about your trauma, bro. It's hard to
absolutely.
talk about your problems. So we wanted to kind of give it a culturally relevant, funny twist to real problems, real issues that people in the Latino community, in the Mexican community, in the Central American community deal with on a daily basis. And that's how we came up with this fool, because it's relatable,
Yeah, it is. And not to mention that there is fools that are educated. Some of them came from the hood and are doing the other stuff. So they still relate to
Exactly.
that word, but they've been doing this stuff and they couldn't identify with any more back to their roots. And then now you can see like, hey, you can still like be, it's not like a bad thing to be a fool, but you're educated and you have your degree, you have your business or whatever it is. So that's dope.
Yeah, exactly, bro. I think that is a point that's a very important, critical point that you're highlighting, Crispin, is this idea that there are foods for many walks of life, right? There are foods who are doctors, there are foods who are lawyers, creatives, entertainers, teachers like myself or like Jesus. And so I think in popular culture, and I'm sure you can relate to this, there tends to be an emphasis on the ignorance of the cultura,
Mm-hmm.
right? On the
Right.
bad things that are happening, right? The violence, and so on and so forth, the crime, right? There's no emphasis on creatives like yourself, right? On writers like myself. It tends to be like, think about my country, for example, right? El Salvador. Like when you turn on the news, it's typically something that's about the gangs or about the poverty or about the crime, right? There's no conversation about all the Salvadoreños that have migrated to the United States and started businesses, have become professionals, right? Are being productive members of the community.
Right.
And so for us, we wanted to kind of put our name out there like, hey, we're here, we exist, we're real, and you, young babies growing up in the hood, we see you, we love you, and you can do it, and don't give up. I know life is hard, but don't give up.
Yeah, I appreciate that too because you're right. For whatever reason, like the negative talk and the negative conversation usually like goes higher and it gets more views than the positive things. And that's some of the reasons what I started the podcast too, because even though there is Latino podcasts, I feel like we need more and more presence and the bigger the numbers, the better to show and highlight people such as yourself, such as, some entrepreneurs locally that I have talked to and different people that have come from different places, either Mexico or from Colombia or different Peru. I've talked to different people like that, and it's awesome for me to be able to highlight, even though they might be not in a bigger scale, but at the end of the day, they came and made a journey through hardship and are here now and doing like entrepreneurship or influencers, whatever the case might be. So yeah, I think it's important to keep the content going, and of course keep the books going, and that's awesome. Okay, why 7 lessons? Why not more? Why not less? Why was seven the perfect number?
Yeah, bro, that's an excellent question, right? To be honest with you, we are students of the game, right? We read a lot. We like to educate ourselves, and personal development books and self help books have really become a central part of our development and our growth
Right.
as educated fools.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a very popular book called "The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People."
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one of the books that I really appreciate. And then you have the Four Agreements, right? And you have a bunch of books, but there tends to be this like set now or 12 rules for life. And I don't know, for whatever reason, the number 7, we just really liked it. We felt like that was a good number of lessons that we could share with our community, with our people. And it wasn't overwhelming. 7 is like digestible. I'm sure you read the book pretty quickly. It's a digestible book. We felt like it was a small enough number where you can digest it, but also a big enough number where it didn't feel like we're just giving you like 1 or 2 basic lessons. So that really came from looking at the industry patterns, industry trends, and trying to sort of like put our little grain of salt in the personal development space.
Yeah. So my experience on reading the book, you're right. It is an easy read. Some of the words here, there's a few words that are a little bit, because both your educators went to school. So some of the language is not super hard, but a couple words, maybe they're like, oh, what is that? I have to look it up. But other than that, relatable to the stories that y'all share. And not to mention, you don't make it a one fits all, meaning that this is just my experience, right? This might not be for you, but at the end of the day, this is what happened to me. Maybe if you read this could be for you, or this could be something that you've been struggling for. Well, here's somebody that's done it before, like kind of like a mentor that's showing that they've been there and how did they get out of the situation, or how can they progress, or what's the next move, and things like that. So yeah, I had a easy time reading it. Again, usually I don't read much, but I did it. And yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Easy read, easy to get and digest, like you mentioned, and easy to get into some of the lessons that you talked about, and related in the manner of the wording that you use sometimes, as far as like making it not too hip, but hip at the same time. So where you're not just strictly about business, but here and there add a couple jokes, a few things that were funny, and then a few things that were just like kind of like, hip hop-ish culture that you can kind of relate if you like things like that. So like, oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, yo, I appreciate you sharing that feedback, Crispin, because as you know, we are independently published authors. So we did everything ourselves, right? From the inception to the revision to the editing to the drafting to the concept, right? Everything was done by us. And so the fact that you were able to connect and reflect on that, I really appreciate it. And to your other point regarding the idea that Latinos, that is not like one monolithic experience, you're right. Like, we are very complex people as Latinos, right? There's not like one type of way to be a Latino. And so we really wanted to emphasize like, yo, this is just our experience. This is how we felt about it. If you connect with it, cool. If not, that's cool too. We respect it, Hey, yeah. Jesus is on. Let's get it.
I can't see you yet, Jesus, but we weren't able to get the camera going on my side, but I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me, Jesus? JFLOW, we're good? Okay. So we were just getting into the book. I was telling them I usually don't read books. I'm not a big reader strong. I like to listen more stuff, but I was able to read the entire book. And I told him, I have the book in my hand. I went and actually bought the book. I know that he might suggest he want to send me one, but I wanted to support whatever you had going on. So I bought the book. And even though I don't read often, I took the whole book, and it was easy to digest, easy to understand some of the lesson, easy to be relatable as far as like being like some of the wording that I use, sharing your stories, but not a one fits all type of stuff. It's just kind of sharing your story, and hopefully it can enlighten somebody, which I think some people are going to benefit out of it. That's what I was just telling SGN.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot, man. I really appreciate when fools can connect on that tip, because I know reading really ain't a thing, like for a lot of people. So for us to make something readable and digestible and like make it like the part of reading that's really hard to connect with is like why. That's everyone's why. Why should I spend my time right after work or after doing this and that? So that means a lot.
Yeah, and then the questions that y'all put after every lesson. I'm not trying to give all the secrets on the book, but yeah, I do have a method of a couple questions to reflect on. So a lot of the time we forget sometimes that we read. We don't take the time to just like sit on the things that we just read. And some of those questions kind of sort of helped kind of reflect a little bit on what you have just finished reading, which I think is important sometimes to read for a few minutes and pause and just meditate or just, kind of ponder on what you just finished reading to better comprehend the message that you were trying to put. So I think it is well done as far as those type of questions. I liked it. I liked it because it made me think again. I'm like, oh, okay. So it was dope. Interactive.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Graceman, because this book in many ways, I would argue, was inspired by our training / philosophical approach to our teaching, right? We're very inquiry-based educators. What does that mean? That means that we don't believe in just like depositing knowledge into your brain and now you got to spit it back. Nah. It's more about like, what does this mean to you? How can you make meaning out of this information? Because let's keep it 100. If you read something, but it doesn't connect, it really has no meaning to your life. Right. So you just put it, you put that book back. Right. And so for us, those questions were very essential in the sense that we wanted you to start a relationship, not just with our book, but with yourself, like with that idea. So that the reader, can explore that deeper. That's the value that we felt like one of the value propositions that we bring that's unique in a sense, because we want the experience to be the readers. Even though we're sharing our stories, our reflections, it's really about what jewels the reader can pick up.
Not to mention, again, you made it somewhat interactive because whether you want it or not, you kind of, even though it's within the mind, you interact with whatever the read, and within the questions too, you start like your gears start turning in your head because, you have to kind of sort of like think about the question.
Facts.
Okay, so how long did it take total for y'all to get the back and forth and everything for you to complete the book?
That's a great question. You want to take that, Jesus?
It was about a year, brother. A year of the complete scope. Okay. But the writing process, the thing, like SGN, man, like you could give him a prompt right now and he'll write you 5 essays tonight. You know,
dope. That's
so
nice.
Like writing is fun, bro. It's like your creative process, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can get things done in a few months. So the writing portion was actually like the easiest part. I think the writing portion probably took no more than 6 months, right? Nice. The other 6 months was really like thinking about the cover work, thinking about the editing, right? Thinking about how are we going to go ahead and distribute this, right? Thinking about like all the logistical pieces of creating a product. So overall, like putting all that together, it took about a solid year.
Oh, nice. And I enjoy the work. I'm looking at it right now. I enjoy the artwork, the burro, the font, everything. It looks nice. The hip clothes with the jewelry, everything. It's dope. I like it. I like it a lot. And
thank you.
Okay, so for both of y'all, this question is for both because I know y'all talk on part of the book, and I don't want to give everything as far as the book, but y'all do talk about and address trauma, which I think is important. But I also think forgiveness is very important. So is there any book that y'all read, or what is y'all's process as far as working forgiveness, any exercises or anything like that, or maybe a read, or maybe something that you heard that can help the process? Because I think it's very important as far as the healing process if you're able to exercise forgiveness, because a lot of the times people don't understand. I feel it is very important for the same reason that it's not for that person, whoever hurt you. It's just mostly for oneself to be able to further one as far as like healing and also surpassing your traumas and things like that.
Yeah, I can go first, bro. So for me, the way that I have been able to embrace this idea of forgiving those who have hurt me, particularly loved ones who have hurt me, has been through just deep, man. Well, you asked me about a book, so I'm not going to get into outside of a book. Okay, so a book, I would say the 4 Agreements, bro. I've said that in other interviews, and I talk about that book offline, online, off live, on live, and I'll never stop preaching positively about that book because of the impact that it had in my life as a young, misguided fool trying to become a professional, trying to make something of himself. So the 4 Agreements is a very important personal development book that I think everyone should read, no matter where they are on their journey, because it teaches life principles in a very practical way. So one of the things that it teaches is that we should not take anything personally. And you're like, okay, well, that's basic advice. But he's like, no, 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 no. The way he breaks it down is that nothing anyone does is because of you. What they're doing is just projecting whatever they're feeling, right? Their insecurities, their fears, their anger, etc. Therefore, when we accept that as our truth, we're basically in agreement with what they're doing, whether that's our truth or not. And so for me, that was a very powerful realization that, like, cool. So my upbringing and the negative things I experienced growing up weren't because of me. It was simply like my environment, things that I couldn't control, right? And so that really allowed me to forgive and also compassion, bro. There's another book called Tattoos on the Heart, The Boundless Power of Compassion by Father Gregory Boyle. And even though like the people that are described in the book, the message of compassion and forgiving those who have hurt you really resonates in that book. And so that's how I was able to forgive some of those who have hurt me. It's like, oh, you were hurt. So hurt people, got it. So I was hurt by hurt people. And therefore, it's my job to break that generational curse and not pass that trauma down. So empathy and compassion, I'll leave it at that and pass it on to my bro, Jesus.
Hey, man, I was going to talk about the same book, Tattoos on the Heart, Father Gregory Boyle. I mean, that's a white dude that did great work in the hood. You know, he starts the chapter talking about how many funerals he's had to lead, you know, and like we personally know that, right? Like having all these friends that were involved in this and this and this and that, like the pain and the reality is so true that we can't ignore, you know, we can't ignore the pain, which causes us to deflect as much as possible and never want to forgive, right? Yeah. Never want to forgive all the fools that have been fucking up and been fucking up our streets and doing us dirty, possibly hurt our families. But through that exemplar of like compassion, it really goes to show, bro, like it's about having love for everything and everyone, and it starts with yourself, right? So that was a key component of that book. Also for me, like, you know, I'm not religious, nor am I Christian, nor am I anything of that nature, but I did grow up in a sect of Christianity. So I would read the Bible, and I was a big fan of like the words of Jesus, right? And like what he would speak and the actions that were behind that. And a lot of that was about forgiveness, you know, which you really think about it and you're like, forgiveness. Holy shit. Eventually you realize that it's not so much about forgiving your mom or your dad or your homies or the streets. It's more about forgiving yourself, bro. Because that's the person that you meet every single day. And when you learn to forgive yourself, it's so much easier to just live through life as an imperfect human being. Which is like why I really appreciate that book, the Bible, whether it's just tales or whatever we want to say, you know, it's dope instructional in that realm. Also, like a lot of like Buddhist, you know, principles of accepting life for what it is, right? That also is key and connected to forgiveness, man. Forgiveness is key, man. Thank you for bringing that up for sure.
Yeah. So the empathy part, I think, is super important because once you get to that point, you kind of sort of can see it from the other person as far as like the reason maybe why they're acting a certain way. They might be hurt, like you said, and they're only doing what they've been knowing all their life. They don't know any better, you know? So it's kind of hard to change anybody that doesn't know any different until they know better. And then that's when you move on. For me, we all different, like you said. Yeah, I read, but mostly for me, it was a video that I found on YouTube. I think it was a white lady. Her name was Louise Hayes, and she has a forgiveness exercise where you close your eyes and you picture the people that hurt you, and you play like you forgive, like you tell them I forgive you, and get to the point where you can hug them and you can do different people, and you don't necessarily have to go to that person. It's just all in the mind. You close your eyes and you just keep doing and doing until you run into that person, and nothing happens. Like there's nothing. There's like, okay, I get it, I forgive you, and that's it, and you move on, and it feels relief. A few times I came off from my ice close with tears because some of them were very tough, especially like you said earlier, some of the loved ones, the one that touched you, like hurt you in that manner. They all of a sudden like it's kind of hard, but at the same time, it's important because you got to move on, and it's gonna keep you in the same place if you don't pass that. And that's the one that I used. It wasn't a reading; it was more of a video. But it practiced, and I still, to this day, sometimes it cuts me off. Somebody cuts me off on the road. I sometimes go later on in the day if I reflect and go and do the same exercise, even though I don't know who that person is. But at the same time, I'm not going to keep it inside of me so I can just, keep progressing as a person. And that's dope. I appreciate that. Yeah, sharing that. Okay, so I like the fact that you both are Latinos and were able to reveal some personal things that could put you in a vulnerable position in the book. And it's appreciated that you were able to share some of those things. How hard was that to do that and put it in the book? And that's for both of y'all.
Go for it, Chewy.
I think I've always worn my heart on my sleeve, which is a strength and a weakness. It's a strength because if you're trying to do the hard work with kids, women, whoever, you have to be, it's a sign of leadership. You know what I mean? Like, I can't respect somebody that's trying to tell me what to do, but they can't be open, honest, transparent, because I'll see right through it and I won't respect it, right? I won't listen. I will rebel because there is no real transparency. Therefore, there will be no real respect. So if I want to be a leader in that respect, I got to speak truthfully, I gotta be honest with myself. So another part is like writing. I never really meant this book to be this thing that was going to be in prisons, that was going to be in high schools, that was going to be in homies all over the place, from Australia to Mexico to the United States. That was never my intention. My intention was to heal myself through the act of writing. And it just so happened that, it took on its own wings. So I'll leave it right there.
Nice. So it was therapy for you at the end of the day. That did help you out. That's dope.
Absolutely.
What about yourself, Andrew?
Yeah, very similar to Jesus. We made a very intentional decision to utilize this not only as a way to create a legacy and write a book, which is very important to us, but it was cathartic for us. It was very cathartic for me personally, especially chapter 1, the embrace the trauma. I actually cried a couple of times during writing that chapter because it was almost like I should have titled that In Search of Forgiveness, because I was almost searching for that forgiveness towards, I talk about it in the book, towards my parents,
Yep.
And there are some things that I left out, you know what I mean? Because just out of respect, out of respect for their humanity, I didn't get super deep into it. I was intentional. I was careful about how I shared that story, but understanding that it was my story, and I was going to control that narrative. I was going to decide how that story is told. So for me, digging deep into the depths of my soul, into the volcanic eruptions of my pain in my heart, that's what led to that chapter for me personally. So the process was cathartic. It was healing. And I recommend it, even if you don't want to write a book, just write out how you feel about something, or even like another practice. Like I know you talked about the visualization, the mental visualization of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent practice. Another one that I actually learned in church, actually, even though I don't go to church anymore, you write down like some reflection or something that hurt you, and then you burn it.
Oh, yeah,
that's another little practice, like I've done that in my life, in my personal time. I don't think I've ever shared this with anyone, but I have. I wrote some things down that, so some people I want to forgive, some things that I wanted to just get off my heart, like those rocks that we carry in our backpacks, right? Jesus, who's the dean of culture at our school, he does this dope professional development, and I don't even know why I'm talking about it. You should be talking about it, but I'm gonna big you up right now, bro. He does this dope professional development at our school where he talks about restorative practices, right? So at my school, we practice restorative discipline, restorative practices, right? Because we don't want to contribute to the high dropout rates of school of kids. So he talks about the trauma that they carry, and in this exercise, he puts on a backpack, and in that backpack, he puts on like multiple heavy rocks, right? And one of the rocks could be like, you know, dealing with poverty, dealing with verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, hunger, divorced parents. I don't know. I mean, there's so many things, right, that kids that come from tough backgrounds have to experience, right? And it was crazy during the exercise because I was watching this. I was like, "Damn, this is dope." And the more rocks you remove, right, the lighter the backpack becomes. Yeah. And that's basically life, bro. The more traumas you unpack and just leave behind, the lighter you become spiritually, dog.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this process was for me. You know, I became a little lighter, you know. I'm not saying I'm fully healed, you know, because healing is a journey, is a process, right? It's a process, not a destination.
Right.
But we felt much better after it. And the fact that we were able to impact lives, I mean, blessed, bro. Blessed.
I like I heard about that exercise, but the crazy thing is that when you do it, it really does something, right? I don't know what the magic is behind it, whether it's the visualization when you close your eyes, the way it's burning, writing down the papers and burning it. I don't know why, but it works. It works like magic. It really does do something to you. It really lifts some weight off your shoulders that you don't need to be carrying around. It's kind of like the same example about the rocks in the bag. Like once you start getting rid of some of you, like realize how smooth more and how nicely and more happy you can go through life without having to have those and really having to talk about whatever happened and move through that so you can be, you know, kind of lighter, for lack of better words. Okay, so I like the fact that y'all were able to switch back and forth on the lessons. Like you'll do one, and then JFLOW will do the other one, and that's super dope. But as far as writing the 7 ones, is there any particular one? I know you said the first one was tougher for you and more to heart. What about yourself, JFLOW? Was there any of the lessons that you wrote that was like it was tougher to do, but you got through it? Or looking back, once you finish writing it, you'll be like, oh man, I didn't realize what I finished writing. I think it's gonna change somebody or touch somebody at least.
Honestly, I think a lot of the family stuff, I think is the part that is the most difficult because, you know, it's not like I want to put my family on blast or have this sense of like ungratefulness or none of that, bro, because I am who I am because of that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like all the trials and tribulations and everything has led me to what I am today, and I'm very proud of who I've become. So I would say like every chapter there was a certain piece of information that I thought about it and I was like, damn, should I say this shit? You know, should I let the world know? And at the end of the day, I used to have a podcast and I was already very open, you know, and I would talk about my life, you know, and some people would be like, damn, bro, like why did you say that about your dad? I was like, because it's true. You know what I mean? Like, how am I ever going to be able to accept reality if I'm hiding, if I'm running away from the truth? A fact is a fact, you know? And I think we just have to, you know, do a pros and cons list in our head real quick and decide, like, is it going to be worth it? And I think so far it has been worth it because I think the way that you create something for the long term is you do you, right? Which is, I think, one of the chapters, follow your heart, right? So in following my heart,
Yeah.
I did what I wanted to do instead of following like the crowd or following what's cool or following what's the wave, right? Ain't nobody think writing books is cool. You know what I mean? Like this one time I was kicking it with some homies and their older brother, like I heard him like whisper to his brother. He was like, who the fuck writes books? And and I laughed and I didn't take it no personal way because like that's like homies that don't read or are uneducated or whatever. Like that's just what it is, you know. And it's just like it's nothing personal. Because most people will be like, "Fool, just why don't you sell micheladas? You know, you really want to make money."
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it's cool, you know. Like I'm not trying to do that, you know. I'm trying to be me. I'm trying to explore every possibility that comes from me, like originally. And so following your heart, bro, for me is like something super important. I live by that. It gets me in trouble sometimes. It makes me do like stupid decisions sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's who I am. And I'm going to live by that. So following your heart, that's mine.
Awesome. Okay. And was there any other one besides the first one that you did for Angel? Or is it any other one that kind of touched you more besides that one?
Yeah, man. I think I would say the second lesson that comes to mind at the moment, based on that question, would be find your island.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I'm not gonna get too deep into that lesson because I want people to read the book or spark some interest. But find your island is just this idea of like find a physical or a mental space where you can be at peace, to be yourself, to be creative, to explore, you know, any idea or way of being that you want to explore without like outside forces like contaminating that. So I would say find your island.
I like the way you put, I'm not going to give everything away, but certain things that are related as far as what you listed of the places you've been, I kind of like sleeping on the couch and different things like that. It's like, we related because I was the same way. I was sleeping on the couch here till a certain age, you know what I mean? And it's crazy.
So you know the struggle, bro. You know the struggle.
I know. So it's relatable because I'm sure you and I are not the only ones, and other people are. But Find Your Island is a great chapter to read and explore whatever that means, and it's awesome. And congratulations! I'm not gonna say on what, but congratulations on what was said on that chapter for when you found one. So read the book to find out what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yes, sir. I love that.
So I want to touch up briefly on traveling because I think you talked about it in another podcast, but I think it's super important because I think I've seen different countries, right? And I think it opened my perspective as far as the way people live. And I know you touched about it a little bit on it, but how important is traveling and what does it do to oneself when you start seeing other places and the way that other people live? And that's for both of you.
Yeah, bro. Powerful question. So, as I stated earlier, I was born in El Salvador. And so, I got to experience my country, for the first 7 years of my life, my birth country. Beautiful country, beautiful greenery. I got to experience the Salvadorian culture. When I came to LA as a youngster, I got to experience a wide diversity of cultures. When I went to college, I got to travel to many different states through a scholars program. I got to go to New York City. I got to go to Northern Cali. I got to go to Atlanta, Georgia. I got to go to Chicago, Illinois. I got to go to Utah. I got to go to Idaho. I went to all these different states. And even within the United States, you realize the cultural diversity. Most recently, I got to travel to Mexico, the state of Jalisco, where my wife's family's from.
Nice.
And what I've learned through traveling is that different cultures are beautiful. There's a lot more out there than your neighborhood, right? Whatever block you grew up on, the world is much bigger than that, much more bigger and brighter and sometimes more beautiful than that. And that's okay to admit. And what it taught me, bro, it opened up my perspective. For me, what traveling did, so I'll speak for me. What traveling did for me was that it allowed me to escape this whole kind of like this narcissistic, LA centric mindset. Like LA is the best place ever, and LA is the dopest place ever. And because the only thing I knew about Mexico was all like the media stereotypes, like where they show you like the slums and places where there's real poverty. And I know that's valid, I know that's real. So I went to my wife's, town in Guadalajara, like expecting that, And when I saw people thriving and living and just partying and going to work and celebrating and being happy, I was like, hold
Awesome.
up, I was lied to.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of life here, right? It's not just death and sadness. And so for me, it humbled me. It humbled me to respect all cultures, to know that every culture is different and there's a lot of value and diversity in that. And it just opened up my eyes, bro. Just love everyone, respect people, and open up your mind, dog. Like, open up your mind. There's a lot out there that you don't know because you don't know what you don't know.
Oh, yep, true to that. What about yourself, JFLOW?
Yeah, that's true, bro. That's true, man. Like, opening your mind, bro. Like, that's always been one of my things. It's like, oh, like, open up that cranium on me. For me, I remember, this is not my thought. I actually got this from Jordan Peterson. He was talking about how when you're a young man, right, you're the equivalent to a bird trying to stretch its wings out of its nest, right? So it's super important for us to leave our homes, especially a lot of us that feel a strong connection to home. Whatever that place is, it's super important that you get out as far as possible. You communicate, you engage with people that you never met before. You have to get that shock in order for you and your perspective to be stretched so far out where you realize that you have indeed been limited by your surroundings. And when you realize that, it just makes you so much more rich as a human being. You get all these different perspectives, you get all these different resources. Yeah. And then eventually, if you choose to come back home, bro, you're not the same person. Once you see, you can never unsee. So you come back, you're just like this new person. You're no longer a little pajarito trying to spread the wings. You come back like an eagle, bro, ready to eat. You know what I'm saying? And you're just out here like you can fly now. You have like this this high perspective about life, and traveling allows us to do that, bro. I was so close to go Chris McCandless. This is an individual who wrote a book called Into the Wild. And actually, he did not write the book, but the book was inspired by him. He's a character that after college, he had like $20,000 that his parents had saved for him, middle class people, and he like literally donated all the money. He got his backpack on, and he like traveled, right? Backpacked all of America, and that taught him some crazy lessons about life. Unfortunately, he went far out into the wild in Alaska. And he froze to death. He ate some berries, whatever, and he poisoned himself to death. So, there's extremes. There's extremes everywhere, and extremes are quite harmful in many respective ways. So we should travel. We should leave home, but we should never forget our roots. Yeah. Our roots are super, super important. I lived in Iowa. I lived in Chicago. I lived in a lot of different places. And even though I was doing well in these different places, I never really felt my roots, right? And my roots are in Los Angeles, in Huntington Park. I came back and I allowed myself to flourish, right? So traveling is important, but never forget where you came from.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So you were saying about what he was saying, whenever you go and see different places and it opens your mind. Because I used to be in the military, so I got a chance to travel different places.
Oh, nice.
But whenever I saw the way that other people were like living in the Middle East and in Europe, I can't foresee it anymore. Like, I can't stop seeing the way that other people, and it kind of you see the way that they operate, they work. They're just different. It's just the way that normal life is to them compared to whatever you're used to all the time in your area, your little area, whatever it is. And it's dope. You can't unsee it anymore and it gives you more perspective about people, that we're all different, all kinds of different colors, things, and cultures, and different things, and the way that they operate, that it just makes you see it way different. And it does open your eyes, kind of like, yeah, it just makes you see that, and more empathy for people as far as the way that they do stuff. And it's not always the way you do it, the correct way. It's just, man, there's so many billions of people that do life differently than everybody else. Okay.
That's beautiful, brother. What branch were you in?
Army.
Just if you don't mind
I was
me
in the
asking.
Army a while back. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so I know y'all talked about that the school is kind of limited as far as what they can do for a child. But what do y'all do as far as trying to empower students to not only to get educated and not just to get schooled? what is it that y'all tell the kids, or what is it that resources that y'all provide the kids, or even lectures that y'all give your kids to help them open their mind to be educated and not just schooled?
I've always been straight up with them, bro. I let them know. I say, hey, a lot of this shit is a trap, and we're building you up to be a mindless robot that's gonna go ahead and get a job at McDonald's, and you're gonna be stuck there for the rest of your life if you don't realize how important it is to think for yourself and to be your own independent self and be driven, right? To do for yourself and your family. Like, you have to think, bro. If you don't think in this life, you're for sure just gonna be like just a random food, like, for sure. Like Pink Floyd says, another brick in the wall. I'm not saying I'm not, but I'm just saying, like, some of us are a little bit more colored, and some of us have through the experiences of life been shaped in this way or that way. So in my later years of education, I got real big into financial education, right? Because I'm like, yo, bro, like we're facing like real dire generational poverty. So I would make sure that we talked about from the basics of like saving 10%, right? I think George, the first name is George, The Richest Man in Babylon, right? I've read books like that with my students, with sophomores, and that book is real good at teaching you the basics of what to do with money, how to invest, how to move forward, how to get rich in life, right? I didn't get this information till I was like maybe like in my mid-20s, right? Versus like, hey, man, we need to be getting this information to our 10-year-olds, our 15-year-olds, and helping them create business plans for them not to live the 9-to-5 jobs, because the 9-to-5 jobs, kind of like myself, even though I'm kind of like somewhere in between where I've like self-actualized. So like, even though I'm still like working my ass off, I've kind of found a way, perhaps it's just a self-justification, whatever. We could find all these different psychoanalysis of what I'm doing. But in reality, teaching the kids that freedom is possible, but that financial freedom is one of the core tenets of being a free human being in this country. Like, don't get me wrong, I tell them you could either get rich and be free, or you go full homeless and be free. But which one would you rather be? And most people are like, well, shit, I'd rather be rich, right? So I've been real big on teaching the basics of like, whether we're talking about stocks, index funds, even crypto. I've taught my kids how to open up their decentralized wallets. I taught them how to buy ETH, how to buy Bitcoin, very basic things that I think back and I'm like, fool, if somebody was like that passionate and taught me how to buy Bitcoin when I was in high school, it would have been like way game over, right? So little things like that are things that I've done with my students in the past.
That's dope. What about yourself, SGN?
Yeah, bro. As for me, I would say I'm really big on literacy and reading. So I really push reading heavy in my classrooms. I always tell my students, in this class, you will read, you will write, you will discuss, you will present, you will speak. And we will learn how to do this academically. I really push literacy. I tell them literacy and knowing how to read and write is one of the most self-empowering things you can do, because you can make decisions as to what career you want to pursue, what college, university you want to attend, how to read legal documents, etc., how to negotiate contracts. Essentially, what I tell them is that language is a tool that can be used for or against you. That's what I teach my students. And so I teach them from a standpoint of self-empowerment. So I teach them like, hey, this is knowledge, this is information. These are just tools, right? I'm like, think of this class as a toolbox. Take what you need, leave what you don't, right? In a toolbox, you don't need everything, right? For every job, you just need certain things. So I tell them in my journalism class, for example, one of the very first exercises we do outside of like the newsletter and all like the journalism related stuff is they have to tell their stories. But they don't just have to tell their stories like whatever they want. I give them very specific structure. Like how did like your social life, what is the most impactful social situation you've ever been in? What was the most impactful family situation you've ever been in? What was the most impactful friend situation you've been in? And so the reason for doing this is because A, they get to tell their story, which is cool, right? You get to say, hey, this is who I am, and then their peers get to know about them. But B, they get to find common ground, bro. And I believe that that's what humans lack, right? That's what there's so much division, dog. Like, I mean, we don't have to get into it, but politically, America's hella divided, right? Neighborhoods are divided, right, based on what block you live on.
Right.
Society is divided based on what socioeconomic status you fall on. And so for me, that's all happening. I'm not going to fix the political system. You feel me? I'm not going to fix the class-based system. I'm not going to fix all these things by myself. But if I could teach these students how to find more common ground, how to learn how to work together, build ideas together, maybe we can get to a better place socially. So that's what I try to leverage, right? I try to leverage the social aspect of the classroom, right? Where there's 20 to 30 young people, young minds, right? That are ready to learn,
Right.
as well as the reading aspect. So for me is healthy socialization and literacy.
I like that. I like that you're not just going by the book and sticking to whatever you have to do, the curriculum, and just do that and then just go home. I appreciate that fact that, these young minds are, seeing different things that are going to help them with daily life, whether it's the financial, where it's like literally you got to understand what you're reading, not just read it just because you can read it, like read it to understand what they're really saying within this contracts or different things like that. Okay,
Exactly.
so both of you were raised around the LA area, and of course you look at the news or movies or whatever, everything's about related to gang violence and different things like that. But how did y'all maneuver when y'all were younger not to be part of that life, or steering away from being that, or like whether it be part of a gang or whatever the case might be? That's for
Go
both.
ahead.
Yeah, bro. So for me, another powerful question, bro. For me, the way I maneuvered around like gang culture in LA was well, two things. I had a lot of self-determination of like not joining the local neighborhood. Like I had very strict parents, bro. I got to give that up to my parents. They were very strict, and I guess I feared my parents more than I feared the block. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you on that one too.
So shout out to my mom, bro. My mom, she gave me a lot of trauma, but she gave me a lot of ganas and a lot of heart, bro. A lot of corazon. Like I not that I wasn't scared. Of course I was scared. Like who's not scared of the tough kids, But it was more like I just never gave in. So that was number one, right? Self-determination, right? Knowing who I was at a young age, I guess, or thinking I knew who I was, which was a schoolboy. That's what I was called. You were schoolboy, you were square. And just kind of like being like, all right, I guess I'm a schoolboy, I'm a square, And I was blessed, bro. I was blessed by, I always had foods that had my back, bro. I was like the kid, like the Kendrick Lamar, bro. Like straight up banged out kids would protect me, bro. Like anytime things got out of hand. That's why I don't glorify gang culture, right? Because there's no need to glorify it, right? But I also like understand a lot of the reasons why it exists,
Right.
From like a family aspect. And yeah, bro, I had a banged out kid from a hood in middle school straight up treat me like I was family when I was getting bullied. No one stood up for me, bro. No, not a freaking teacher, not a principal, not other tough kids, but guess who did, bro? A gangbanger stood up for me.
That's
And
dope.
so I was blessed, bro. So I thank God, for that kid. I also had another hood kid protect me in high school. So like I was blessed, bro. I said God sent me angels through hood kids that banged, and as well as self-determination. Shout out to my mama and shout out to the banged out fools that looked out for me.
Hey, I think they saw the potential in you. You understand that, it wasn't for you. And then, they weren't going to let anybody come to you because they knew you had somewhere to be. You know what I mean? And that's pretty dope.
Yeah. Yeah, bro. God bless their souls, bro.
What about you, JFLOW?
Those who protected me, man, when I couldn't protect myself.
Absolutely. What about you, JFLOW? How did you maneuver around that?
Bro, I didn't want none of that smoke, bro. For real, I was just like, dang, like motherfuckers is getting shot, like motherfuckers is getting like suspended and OT'd, and like I was just like, it's a lot of drama, bro. You're getting beat like because you want to, Like, what the fuck? Like, that shit didn't make no sense.
They
to
didn't
me,
add
bro.
up to you, huh?
Yeah. And then so that's one side, right? I'm like adding the numbers and I'm just like, fool, what the fuck? Like this shit don't this business ain't for me. And then on the other side, dude, my dad was like a scary dude, man. Like I knew what the consequences would be, and my dad was always like that fool that was like, están caminando con los pantalones como si están cagados, por qué no se rayan el culo, So I knew for sure that shit was not gonna crack in my house, Yeah, from like piercings to tattoos to the way that I dress, like all of that. Like my father is like a strong Mexican machista, and what he said went down, and I saw him beat people in the family, outside of the family. So I knew that I was going to be part of that legacy of kids getting beat. And I was just like, you know what? I was a middle child, so I got to see a lot of my older siblings receive like beatings, bro. I'm talking about like shit that, you're just like, what the fuck? How is this shit allowed? But it was in a generation before, kids fucking used to call the cops on their parents and all this and all that. So I just knew, bro. I was like, bro, if I do something like this, like, not only am I gonna face consequences in the streets, I'm gonna face consequences at home when I can just be a regular kid, mind my business, go play sports, have fun, and figure life out. So for me, I'm very lucky, bro, that I was just able to see a lot of the kids, and like some of them were my friends. I would help them do homework sometimes, in class. They would look at me and be like, yo, like, Jesus, man, I see you done with your work. And I'd be like, yeah, I am. They're like, shoot it. And I'd be like, all right, don't shit, here you go. And then they'd be all cool with me and all this and all that. And before I know it, I'm walking around campus feeling good. I'm just like, bro, these fools ain't gonna do shit to me because I help them in the classroom and they appreciate it. Everybody else ain't gonna do shit to me either because I'm nice. I was nice to everybody, bro. I was kicking it with the punk rockers, with the paisas, with the fucking band geeks, with the fucking kids playing Pokemon cards. And I was captain of the football team. So I was just like, I've always been smarter than the average bear. So when you're like that and you're in high school, it's an easy game, bro. It's an easy game. I fucking miss it because I chilled, bro. That's all I did in high school was chill, kick back, and score touchdowns. Awesome. So, the streets were always there. And even today, when I meet some of the homies from way back then, they're like, hey, fool, you tripped me out because you always knew what's up, but you never got involved. And I was like, yeah, no fucking shit, like
politicking through the streets and school, keeping away from that bad juju.
Yes, sir.
Okay. One of the lessons you mentioned, I think it was SGN regarding knowledge, like wisdom being powerful. But for me, I usually use like knowledge is really not power. It's whatever you do with the knowledge that is the true power, right? Like we can read a billion books, but if you do nothing with that, it doesn't really matter. It's what you put into action, which is kind of like sort of in the aligns with the wisdom being the true power. But has there been any knowledge of any books that you read that you have put into practice that have changed maybe your life?
Yeah, bro. For me, that's an easy answer. The Four Agreements. So
I'm gonna have to read that book. I'm gonna have to go get that book too.
It's right there. Look, I have actually purchased a poster of it, and I keep it in my office. This is my work office. This is actually my first office. Which I'm very proud of. Jesus is in his office.
Congrats to both of you.
Thank you, bro. We're both college educated, college graduate professionals with professional jobs and salaries, and we're very proud of that. We worked freaking hard to get here, bro. So we're very proud of it. But that right there is the Four Agreements. And the wisdom that it shares is the first agreement, be impeccable with your word. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. The third agreement is don't make assumptions. And the fourth agreement is always do your best. And so these are core guiding life principles that I strive to live by. I can't tell you that I follow them with fidelity and perfection each and every day. I'm a flawed human being, still learning. But those are 4 principles that I try to remind myself every day. So, for example, when someone says something to me that triggers a negative emotion, I tell myself, bro, are you taking this personally? Should you be taking it personally? Are you making an assumption about their intention? Right? Maybe I need to take a step back and give that person some grace, show them some empathy, some compassion, right? Or the 4th agreement, always do your best, right? If I'm sleeping in, right, I have this new goal of waking up at 4 a.m. at least 2 times out of the week, right? That's one of my goals, and eventually I want to do it every day, Monday through Friday. And if my alarm goes off and I'm snoozing it, I ask myself, bro, are you doing your best? You're not. Right? Are you working towards your greatest potential? You're not, right? And the first agreement, which to me is the most important, be impeccable with your word. What does that mean? That means, are your actions matching what's coming out of your mouth? Right? Are my actions matching what I'm saying? Being impeccable with your word, right? If I'm preaching excellence, yeah, guys, this flow, I'm an author, excellence, 7 less burros and bag chasers. You got to be trauma informed. You got to educate yourself. But I'm not on my healing journey. I'm not eating right. I'm not spiritually centered. I'm feeding my mind garbage. I'm treating my wife like crap. I'm treating my students like crap. And I'm not respecting my colleagues. Then am I really this fool that's chasing the bag in a healing centered way?
Yeah.
Or am I just chasing the bag just to chase the bag? You know what I mean? So the 4 agreements, that's my answer to you. A book that has taught me important wisdom, not knowledge, wisdom, experiential forms of knowing that can be applied. The 4 agreements.
I like that. I appreciate that very much. I'm going to definitely have to grab that book and read it, even though I'm not if I find an audiobook, I'm going to listen to the audiobook, but I will go get that book. Okay. So, JFLOW, you always talk about some of your posts about the matrix this, the matrix that. And what exactly are you referring to people that can better understand what do you mean? What does it mean to you when you talk about
the system, bro? The system. No, I'm just kidding. So life is very interesting. It's a very philosophical perspective, right? And I think we've all watched The Matrix.
Yeah.
And essentially what it is like this idea that we're all stuck in this false perception of existence where we're minimalizing our own self-expression in the world by not leaving the cave, as like Plato's allegorical cave explains, right? Is that when we're born, we're giving all these ideas. And by the way, Don Miguel Ruiz speaks about this too, the author of that book, that when we're born, society shoves all this fucking bullshit into our minds. But we're born perfect, says Eckhart Tolle, in the sense where, like, when you see a child and they're in their perfect nature, they play, they laugh, they cry, they experience the world freely, assuming that they have an adult that takes care of them, of course. That child has not entered the matrix yet. And so the matrix essentially is the all the ideologies of the world that inoculate us with fear, with hatred, with pain, with trauma. So it's everything that blinds us from the truth, which I don't want to say what is the truth, but to my best guess, my best educated guess, is that the closest thing to the truth is understanding that this is everything that matters. The moment, like being present, being grounded, understanding that, like, if I am here right now, fully, I cannot feel fear. I cannot feel depression. I cannot feel anxiety because I'm not looking to the future. I'm not looking to the past. I'm rooted in this moment of like communion with you, with SGN. And so I know I'm going everywhere, but in a nutshell, I think that there are multiple systems around us, and all of these systems, they try to absorb our natural energy, right? By whether it's work, whether it's like religion, whether it's all these different ideas. So in a nutshell, I think the matrix represents a world that is not the true. It's kind of like this hologram, if you can say. And
Kind of
once
like a
that,
blindfold that they put over like society as far as what you or potentially could be, and they blind you with the things that they keep telling you that you can't, and different things like that, something like that.
yeah, it's a false reality. It's a false reality. I think we can live in a state of abundance, of love, of prosperity, power, but it comes from within. And the matrix makes us believe that we're weak, right? That we're oppressed, that we've been taken advantage of. And so when you allow this matrix to create that narrative, you can never escape. You're stuck in this cycle of like always questioning yourself. And it gets deeper and deeper, just like in the movie, right? When you follow the white rabbit, that motherfucker gets deep, right? But in a nutshell, it represents a false reality of existence that I think we must all challenge and challenge ourselves, because I could be completely wrong in this idea, in this assumption. But luckily, you know, I have the rest of y'all to remind me sometimes, you know, like, hey, bro, like, maybe you're going the wrong direction, and these things help. But that's kind of like what I mean when I talk about the matrix.
And the answer will be to, you know, deal with your trauma, further educate yourself, grow personally, you know and firmly believe in whatever you want to, that everything's possible. You just got to get to the point to get rid of all those thoughts, beliefs that were implanted in you that is not really who you are when you were born. Is that the answer, kind of, a little bit?
Yeah. Knowledge of self. Know thyself. And
Nice.
By knowing thyself and understanding that you are like the universe experiencing itself, then by knowing yourself, then you know everything else. You have a mastery of the universe, right? And when you walk with that power, dude, you begin to realize that you have way more power as you project into the world than not knowing yourself and everything around you telling you what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to be. So knowledge of self is super key and important.
Awesome. One more question for you, JFLOW. If you had a rapper in your class right now, what are you teaching him and telling him to make sure that he doesn't talk negatively about you, instead of talking negative, talk positive about you as a teacher?
Yo, I love that question, dog, because like it always be the rappers, man, that be like, man, fuck my history teacher. Who the fuck is history? So honestly, for me, I'm gonna tell him, you could teach me more about life, because you have this creative expression, and that's power, bro. Like, I just want you to know that you're a powerful being and that your words manifest into reality. So don't be just rapping about fucking Xannies and fucking bitches and like, you know, I thought you was my fan. Now it's hot in here. So what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Like, I want you to know that your words are powerful to write brilliance, and because that will become a reality, bro. A lot of these rappers be talking about they want to smoke and they get popped, bro, because they're literally manifesting their reality. A lot of our favorite rappers started doing shit like that. Tupac, including himself, right?
Yep.
And he was a genius, right? So for a genius, for his later years, for him to manifest his own death in that manner, I mean, I think that was just part of his destiny, you know, and it's tragically beautiful. But if I can reach that powerful creative mind, because these are some of the hardest kids sometimes, bro, because they're so driven by their own like intellect and creativity and will, that they're strong, man. These kids, I met a lot of these kids throughout my career, and they have strong personalities. And my best method has always been letting them be, letting them exist. And when they're ready to receive a message, they come up to you and they ask you questions, right? So if this child was receptive and waiting for something, I would remind them of their own power and to write wisely so that they can manifest and create wisely as well. And hopefully they wouldn't write about their history teacher being a piece of shit, you know?
That's dope. And the power of the word, I don't fully understand it, but I know it's powerful. But like the Tupac thing, that thought came to my mind before is the reason why he ended up the way he was, for the way that he, you know, even though it might have been art, but the words itself is just kind of like he made it come into reality. Whatever he was saying on his songs, even kind of sort of even almost detailing the way that he was going to go. You know what I mean? So it's crazy to me the way that they do. Okay, so we're running short on time, but I got a couple more last minute questions. Okay, I really do enjoy y'all's social media, the word of the day, all the ones, motivational things that y'all do is dope. I appreciate. When was the idea of start implementing some more of that content in your IG? When did that come about? That was you, JFLOW?
So look, bro, I watch a lot of powerful influencers, you know, whether, you know, I can name so many, right? And I started realizing, I was like, damn, bro, like I don't care about fame, bro. I don't give a fuck about that shit, you know. In the perfect world, I would be rich anonymously and I would do great for society, you know. Unfortunately, it don't really work like that. You know what I mean? I don't have the skill to be able to do that in the shadows. So from watching all these badass foods, I was like, okay, dude, they be posting some shit online, bro. And you have to give free game. You have to. Otherwise you're never gonna be able to build rapport with humans that later on are gonna trust you enough to give you their money to pay for something that you want to go ahead and share with the people, you know? So in a nutshell, it came from watching a lot of brilliant people share great information. And it doesn't take that much, bro. You know, like literally right now, I'll get my phone and I get a little thought. And if I wanna practice it a couple of times, I will. Sometimes the first try is what people hear. And it comes from a place of like wanting to build, again, it's like the book, building something, educating people, inspiring people, and sharing a little word with people that they resonate with, bro. And it's such a beautiful thing, bro, when people resonate with what you say. And I'll be the first to say, I'm still a fool.
Yeah.
I'm still a fool.
I think, you know, sometimes it's just the frequency, because sometimes you can hear a message from 10 people and like sometimes 9 of them, nothing. They say the same exact thing, but you can't relate to them except for that 10th one. All of a sudden, for whatever reason, their voice, whatever, is just kind of more appealing to you. And you could be that voice to somebody that they listen to somewhat a creator saying something similar, but they couldn't relate. And all of a sudden, your pitch, your tone, whatever it was, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, wow, I hear it. I hear what he's talking about.
Facts, bro.
Okay. So when is the new book coming out? What's the title? And do you have a date for it? I know that you're working on the book.
Oh, my boy went into the archives.
Is it almost ready? You have a title yet, a date?
Man, we definitely have some working titles. We're not at liberty to share the titles at the moment.
Okay.
But we definitely have some working titles. I would say, I don't want to put a number on it, but I'll be humble and say the manuscript is more than halfway finished at the moment. Would you agree with that, JFLOW?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just being humble about it. It's definitely more than halfway finished. We're not gonna put a release date on it because we want it to be like this might be like one of our best works, bro. So we don't want to put a release date on it. We're willing to wait as long as necessary for it to maybe not as long as necessary, but we don't want to rush it, right? So we don't have a release date yet, bro. I don't want to like say put a date and then we don't meet that deadline. I don't know if you want to speak on that a little more, Jesus.
Yeah, bro. Honestly, I would love to share these working titles because we got some fucking fire. But at the same time, it's kind of like it would be a premature a preemie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally respect it.
Yeah.
I just heard y'all on a podcast talking about it. Maybe y'all had something, but I'm glad that y'all are working another one. And you already did one. Y'all were able to get the system down to get a book out now. So I'm pretty sure the process is a little bit more refined for the second one, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be great. So awesome. I respect the fact if y'all don't have a date or a title, but I'm looking forward to whenever y'all ready to get it out. Okay?
Thank you, bro. We
All right.
appreciate that.
Well, we are running out of time. I'd say an hour and something, but we went a little bit over. But real quickly, before I let y'all go, what is all your social media? Where can they get you at?
Yeah, so I can get started. So they can find me at Scholar Gamer Nerd on Instagram, and they can find us at Who's Gone Educated on Instagram.
Yeah. So at Foods Uneducated, is where my public information is gonna go on. I recently made my personal one private, just because I think it's important to kind of start kind of like differentiating. And there's all these people that just I hate the motherfuckers that just be keeping tags on you, but they don't show you no love. They don't share your shit. And I'm just tired of them like knowing what the fuck I'm up to, So that personal one, it's now private, but all my Foods Gone Educated shit, that's like
I missed the
that's
cut.
what I want.
I just barely seen you requesting your personal. I missed the cut on that one. So good though. But yeah, I got you on the Global Land Factor.
Bro. We cool. Hit me up on that. We good.
Hey man, I'm gonna make mine private, bro. Cause I never thought about that, but I don't like that, bro. How you gonna be on my stories, but you're not gonna like my posts?
No interaction, nothing. I feel you on that because I get that. Like people that come through the podcast. I'm sorry for the interruption. You were saying?
No, go for it.
So yeah, I feel the same way as y'all. Their stories don't match the likes on the post, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, I know you're seeing it. I just know you're not liking it, sharing it, whatever the case might be. I mean, I don't know what are y'all doing here. Who are you? Who sent y'all? And I agree.
I agree. It'd be some weird motherfuckers on it. So we're on the same page.
Yeah. And if you want to catch the book, if you get the book, you can go to Amazon. But where else can they get the book? Where else can they pick up the book? Whether it's a digital copy or the actual hard copy.
Yes, sir. So for people interested in purchasing this Who's 7 Lessons from Burros and Backchasers, one of the most epic personal development books you will ever read. You can find it on hardcover and on paperback on Amazon. You can also find it on Kindle on Amazon. You can also purchase it via Ingram Spark. It's also available at Barnes & Nobles and at many independent bookstores across Los Angeles and different parts of the United States. So it's available everywhere. Just have your pick, and it ships internationally and domestically in the United States.
Awesome. And JFLOW, I still got you there?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, you're as far as like the book itself, I'm sorry. I think he answered the question for you. My bad. I just seen you were gone, so I'm making sure you're there still. Okay, a couple more last questions before I let you go. So one of them is if you can, a lesson that you learned in anything that you're doing in life that you could tell your younger self that can help somebody else, what would that be from both of you?
Ooh, can I start, bro? I know this lesson. That's a beautiful question, Crispin. The lesson that I would tell my younger self is that don't worry, everything you need is in your soul.
Nice. I like that. What about yourself, JFLOW?
I guess for me, it would be more about like loving yourself and being confident. Like, I mean, it takes you a long way, bro, because when you're young, everything hurts you. And in reality, it's like, dude, when you talk to 60-year-olds, it's like they don't give a fuck about nothing. And it's just like, damn, bro, that's how we gotta be. So, loving yourself and being confident.
Awesome. So the fact that you all are educators, you expanding the minds of young people, not only, as I mentioned earlier, just following by the book, but telling them and setting them up for the future. And the fact that you have a book that you wrote that's reaching worldwide, talking about Australia and different places, there's no doubt that both of y'all, by being educators and everything, y'all definitely are a global Latin factor. So, fools, gone educated, you are a global Latin factor. We appreciate y'all very much.
Hey, thank you, bro. We're happy to join the Global Latin Factor. Familia meets food, God educated. Muchas gracias. We appreciate it, Crispin.
Okay. And one last question before I let y'all go. If anybody was to Google you in the future in some kind of search engine or Google, what do you hope for them to find about you or about your book? What would that be? We'll start with JFLOW this time.
I would hope for them to find a complex human being that admitted his faults, that was imperfect, but had a huge heart and always wanted the best for his people, for humanity, and that I devoted my life to working on myself, helping out the family, and in general, man, that just is a person that gave a fuck, that really gave a fuck about people.
Awesome.
Yeah,
what about yourself?
Yeah, as for me, I would say if people were to search me up in the future, I would want them to find whatever they need. If they need a little bit of inspiration, find that. If they need some motivation, find that. I hope they would find an individual that gave of himself and his time relentlessly, that emptied out the tank each and every day, and that was just real and honest, wasn't phony, wasn't manipulative, was just trying to engage in the highest human act, as Nipsey once said, which is to inspire. Somebody who would try to inspire others to do better.
Awesome. Beautiful. I appreciate both of y'all. And I'm going to close it out. Thank you very much. This was another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast. Remember, we are just like you with the spice in this melting pot that it is the world. Till next time. Bye.
Peace.
Thanks, family.
Thank you very much for checking out this episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast. If you are enjoying the content and the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers so we can bring you more episodes, more channel. Go like, go subscribe, go write a comment. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Walks like a pero but in fact is a flamingo. Coming to Havana and from Puerto Rico. On a pirate ship, you don't know where do we go. The birds of the jungle chasing fortune and